Poppy Playtime 4, The Last Experiment. Chapter 1, A New Invitation. The air was thick with uncertainty as you stared at the screen. Another cryptic email, this time with no sender, only a subject line that chilled you to the bone. It's not over. They're still watching. It had been years since you last set foot in the abandoned halls of Playtime Co. The factory, once teeming with life, had now become a husk of its former self, decayed, overrun, and haunted by the twisted creations of long-forgotten experiments. You thought you had uncovered the truth about the toys, the experiments, and the horrors hidden deep within the factory. But somehow, that didn't feel like the end. It was as if Playtime Co. was still pulling the strings from the shadows. With trembling hands, you opened the email. The final experiment was never completed. Come to Playtime Co. We'll show you the truth. Attached was a series of photographs, blurry, grainy images that seemed to be taken from a security camera deep within the factory. In the corner of each image was a figure, an eerie silhouette of something alive but unnatural, standing behind shadows. The factory had been locked down after the incident with the prototype, but you knew one thing. You couldn't ignore this. You couldn't turn away from the truth that had been left behind. You had to go back. Chapter 2. Return to the factory. The factory stood before you, just as eerie and ominous as it had been before. The entrance, once grand and welcoming, was now rusted and crumbling. The sign that hung above the gate, which once proudly read Playtime Co., in bright colors, had now been torn and weathered. But something was different this time. There was no silence. From within the building, the faint sound of machinery could still be heard. You felt a cold chill run down your spine. Something was waiting for you. With a deep breath, you stepped forward and pushed the heavy, creaking doors open. Inside, everything had been left as it was. The halls were still filled with broken toys, shattered glass, and abandoned machinery. But there was something more, something alive. You could feel it in the air, a heavy presence that seemed to watch your every move. Following the old blueprint from the email, you found the elevator that led deep beneath the factory. There was no turning back now. You stepped inside, your heart pounding in your chest. The elevator doors closed with a mechanical hiss, and the darkness swallowed you whole as it descended. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Experiment. The elevator came to a halt, and the doors slid open to reveal what remained of Sector X, a section of the factory long forgotten by time. The walls were lined with cold, sterile metal, and the air was thick with the smell of chemicals. Unlike the decaying factory above, this place was pristine, almost too clean. You could hear the hum of machines working tirelessly in the background, their purpose unclear. The hallway stretched out before you, the floor still illuminated by faint, flickering lights overhead. As you moved deeper into the sector, the feeling of being watched intensified. It was almost suffocating. You couldn't shake the sense that something was close, something hidden from view. Then you saw it. A glass chamber stood in the middle of the room, almost as if it were awaiting your arrival. Inside was a strange figure, its body a twisted mix of parts, mechanical limbs fused with organic material. It resembled a humanoid, but its eyes were too wide, too knowing. The experiment. You could feel its gaze on you, cold and calculating. For a moment, you thought it was just another failed creation, another casualty of Playtime Co.'s obsession with pushing boundaries. But there was something different about this one. It wasn't just a toy. It was something far worse. The screen above the chamber flickered to life, and a voice crackled through the intercom. "You shouldn't have come. The final experiment is awake, and now you will never leave." Chapter 4. The awakening. Suddenly, the glass chamber shook. You stepped back as the figure inside began to move. It was like watching a nightmare come to life. Its limbs jerked and twisted, as if its body were not entirely in control. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, the figure broke free from the glass, shattering it into pieces. The final experiment, a creation of Playtime Co's darkest ambitions, was now free. With a guttural scream, the creature lunged forward, its eyes locked onto you. There was no escape. It was faster than you could react, its twisted body too unpredictable. You turned and ran, adrenaline surging through your veins. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever as the creature chased you, its footsteps pounding against the floor. You could hear its voice, human, mechanical, and monstrous, echoing in your ears. "You can't hide. I will find you." Chapter 5. Trapped and broken. You raced through the winding halls, desperately searching.